Hello everyone. The game I've got set up here is called Aces and Armor by PKB Games, and well, this video is just gonna be a brief overview of the rules. And well, actually, rules are pretty simple. I did have a few questions, that always happens, but overall, it's a pretty simple game. Very simple game, I would even say, but as long as you know what you're getting yourself into and you're not expecting anything more than what it actually is, it is kind of enjoyable, I suppose. So actually, you can summarize all the rules on one page, which is actually in the rule book, and the rule book is both German and in German and in English. So first, what you do is you move your units, and at that time you also finish some repairs that you may have started, and then you just start moving your units, and the enemy can intercept, which is actually also pretty simple. If the enemy moves from one hex adjacent to your unit to another hex adjacent to you, then you can actually intercept it, and the enemy would be forced to attack you on its next turn. That is, the intercepting unit would have to attack that particular unit. Well, what else? So then you actually move all your units. Normally speaking, a player moves all their units, and then the other player moves all their units. But at the beginning of the game, the designer says that's apparently overpowered. I haven't actually noticed that yet, but of course, I'm assuming that he played the game a lot more often than I did, so it may be overpowered. So what you actually do, and note that this is not an official FAQ, it's just a couple of questions that I asked myself on Board Game Geek and some other people. Most of those other questions I actually understood that way, but it's good to have them on paper, literally and figuratively. So you actually begin by moving one army and fighting with it. So basically completing a complete turn, because you also receive the income right away. Then you move on to player B, who moves two armies. Player A moves and attacks with their other two armies, and then player B moves all their units. So some of them get to attack twice in such in a manner of speaking. Well, not in a manner of speaking, they actually do. And then from then on, it's just all the time player A, player B, player A, and player B moving all their units. Army in this context, by the way, means, well, these are the units, and you actually start with these tokens upside down, so you don't see the numbers, but I've already turned them around. And you can put all your units next to one token. You can put two, so divide them evenly. Here, what I did as I did for the Germans, and here, as I did for the Russians, I put 3 units next to what turned out to be number 6. Yeah, so that's what you do there. And an army is all units that start with such a numbered token. So, for instance, number 5, you look it up on the map. This is where number 5 is. If you can see it. So Russian army number 5 would go here. Then you place 2 German units. I don't actually really know what it matters, because you have to select the armies beforehand. So I suppose you could just do all the Russian units first and then the German units, because nothing would change. But this is what the rules say, so you could just do that. So whereas number 3, well, number 3 is over here. 1 unit you put on the number, and if you're playing the solo mode, because the game has a solo mode, cooperative mode, 4-player mode, and a 2-player mode, which is really nice, of course. So you put 1 unit there and the other unit in. If you play the solo mode, you have to put it here, and otherwise, if you play the 2-player game, I don't think it specifically says you have to put it there. So clockwise, but you in just one of the hexes closest to it. So this particular case, well, it's actually not a bad space, I suppose. So I'll put it there. Well, then you continue with that, and as I said, you start with the phases outlined here. I hope you can read all of them, and just pause the screen, pause the video if you want to, so you can read it for yourselves in peace and quiet. Well, then you declare attacks, and you actually do combat with whichever number of units you're allowed to attack with, as I explained before. The thing here is that you have to decide beforehand which unit you're going to attack, because for instance it's possible that one unit is going to get destroyed, but then if you already said that you were going to attack that particular unit with one of your units and it's already destroyed, you cannot pick a different target. So that's why that is significant. And then you collect money for each factory you control. At this point, none of the factories are controlled, and note that these are just extra tokens you can use. I mean, here you can also see it's a factory, but I prefer putting these tokens on which come with the game too, which is a very nice touch, I think, because this way they stand out a lot more. This is also just half a map, by the way, and one set of units. You could make the map bigger, and on the other side there's a winter map as well, but the bigger maps are mostly meant when you're playing with more than 2 players. I suppose you could with 2 players, but then you'd have yourself a pretty long game, and you'd start with 2 sets of units. The aim of the game is to capture, I believe it's 4 factories, so 4 out of 5. If you're playing the 2-player game on half a map. And then for each factory you control, you get a coin, and the game actually comes with these coins, and with them you can either repair units that are on the factory. Factories can only be captured by infantry, by the way, regular infantry or mechanized or motorized infantry. So for these Germans, there are 2 sets of Germans in the game. Infantry with a machine gun, mechanized infantry can capture a factory, so can Russian infantry and mobile infantry or cavalry. And the game also has another set of Germans, another faction, just like Company of Heroes, really, which this game kind of reminds me of, even though Company of Heroes is the deeper game, the more involved game. Also the game I think I like more, but at the expense of a much heavier rule set. That's when it comes to capturing factories. Factories, of course, can be conquered, but will have to be done by enemy infantry. And if you don't have any infantry left, it doesn't mean that you cannot win the game anymore. It simply means that you would have to destroy all enemy units. So that's also when you can buy new units, the cost of which is noticed on these faction sheets. This little number here. So infantry, a new infantry would cost 2. A new mechanized infantry would cost 3, a new panther would cost 5, etc. So that one outlines the costs for you. And you can start your repairs by putting 2 coins underneath a unit on a factory and start a repair. So once you've actually captured a factory, then you can put other units on there, and they can also defend normally, and they can also be repaired. So basically that's the game in a nutshell. You have some terrain effects, although they're very minimal in this game. To my taste, a little bit too minimal, but I'll do a review in a while. Standard terrain costs 1. If there's a road in there, it costs half a movement point. Even if you don't follow the road, simply having a road in a hex makes it half a movement point. Moving into a forest will cost you 1.5 movement points. It will cost you a full turn to move into a river, and only infantry can move into a river hex. And moving into a factory also costs your full movement allowance. Occupying a factory, that's mentioned here. So even if you want to, well, that's actually not true. I think it says somewhere else, if you want to move into your factory, you pay regular movement costs. So I'm not sure what they mean by this. Occupying a factory, it can only be done by infantry. As I said, it will take a full movement turn, so you cannot do anything else, meaning that you have to start adjacent to move into, to capture a factory. Basically, it says occupying a factory, but basically what it means is capturing a factory. Then you put your token on there. These are for one of the German factions, and these are the Soviet ones, and you simply remove the enemy unit from the factory by moving in. You don't even have to combat, so you really do not want to have enemy infantry next to your factory, just being able to move in. Well, how combat works? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The game comes with a lot of 12-sided dice. 12 green ones, 12 gray ones, and 3 red ones, which are bonus dice. They're not for the Soviets, they're just bonus dice. And normally speaking, you always roll those 12 dice. And I'm not speaking about the bonuses now that you could get, just about the amount of damage a unit has. Well, this little, yeah, you could call it a player rate, I suppose, tells you that the number of dice you roll. If you haven't suffered any hits, as I said, you roll 12 dice. If you've suffered one hit, you roll 11 dice. 2 hits, 10, etc., as you can see. So the more damage you've taken, the less effective you're going to be in a combat. If you have 2 unit types, so for instance infantry and a tank attacking, you would roll 2 extra bonus dice. If you have 3 units attacking, 3 different unit types, not units, unit types, you roll 3 bonus dice. In case of aircraft, if you're attacking you with 2 aircraft, you roll 2 bonus dice, and if you're attacking an enemy aircraft with 3 aircraft, you're rolling 3 bonus dice. If you cause damage to the unit, then you gain 1 experience token, and if you destroy one, you gain 2. So after a while, so for instance, if we take the Panther would hit on a 6 or lower when attacking an enemy unit. This means that it does so only at range 1. That's a bit strange in this game, but actually only artillery usually has a bigger range. Here, for instance, the 88 can hit units ground combat from 2 or 3 hexes away, and air combat, so against air units, from 1 to 4 hexes away. But most of the time, units can only be hit when they're adjacent. So although in real life a Panther had a much longer range than, for instance, a Sherman, in this game you don't see that. Panther does hit a little bit better though. So normally speaking, this Panther would hit on a 6 or less. Again, the number of dice it rolls depending on how much damage it has suffered. But once it has gained 3 experience tokens, so these are the experience tokens, it will hit on an 8 or less. And once it has 5, and you cannot gain more than that, it will hit on a 10 or less. So then you will basically hit all the time. Only 11s and 12s would be misses. So that's basically how that works. And if you're in a forest, and strangely enough, only in a forest, and that's something I don't quite like about this game. I think it's a bit odd, but they have kept it very, very simple. A village doesn't have any effect. It's treated as if it were clear terrain. There are no line of sight rules. It doesn't make movement easier or tougher. It's just clear terrain. And the same goes for mountains. There is an optional rule in the rulebook which says that mountains also cost 1.5 movement points to enter, and even that artillery gets a bigger range, but that's an optional rule. And other than that, the only effect is, well, when you're in a forest, you get some cover. So in this particular case, if you roll 6 hits against a unit in a forest, well, no, that's not true. If the Panther is hit by 6 dice from an enemy unit, if it's in a forest, it will suffer 2 hits. But if it's not in a forest, 4 hits will already be enough to suffer these 2 hits. And you would actually need to, for 6 hits in the clear, you would have 3, but you would require 8 hits if that unit, if the Panther is actually in a forest, to cause those same 3 hits. So basically that means that you get cover there. And I think that about explains the entire game in about 15 minutes, and I've probably even rambled a bit about things that are not even that terribly important at this stage. So yeah, it does go to show it's a pretty simple game. Sooner we'll do a little playthrough as well, so you can see how the game works in practice, and then I'll finish off with a review because I've already played it a few times. Sooner we'll play it against a friend still and see what his opinions are on this game, and now we'll still try a solo game as well. Now I'm also soloing it, but I'm just using the 2-player rules. That's what I usually do. Solo rules from what I've seen. Let's see if I can find them quickly. Yes, they're over here. It's 2 pages, and there are some playthroughs by the designer himself on YouTube as well. Seem to be, well, Obviously, they're slightly more complicated because you have to look up what happens in this particular case, and if you're just playing each side to the best of your ability, um, yeah, you don't have to think about it as much, but now you have to look at move priorities, attack priorities, etc. But from what I've seen, they do make sense. Yeah. There's a logical system behind it. You attack an enemy unit that's about to capture a factory or could reach a factory on the next turn. An enemy unit that could destroy you, or an enemy that you can actually destroy. Those are top priority targets. If two units are, equally suitable for being attacked, qualify equally for being attacked, you choose the most expensive one, etc. So those rules do make sense, and it's great that there is a solo and a cooperative rule set in this game. I think. Well, I don't want to get into a review too much, but I just wanted to point out that you do have solo rules, but that I usually, and that's what I've been doing so far, but I will still try those solo rules as well. I think I will actually do that now. And then I will come back with a review based on a couple of solo playthroughs and then this real solo playthrough, because as far as the other ones are concerned, I've been using the 2-player rules. And soon, as I said, I will be playing with a friend. But before that, I will post a quick review of this game. So thank you for watching, and see you after the next one.